Good morning, folks. Good afternoon. The Bert is back. We're here to preview Dynamite. As you can see, those of you that watched last night's AEW Dark Grin Along, this visual popped me so much that I'm running it back. I felt that just one podcast, 1 hour, was not enough. Wrestle Purist, you'll be blocked if you again reference Wyndham in regards to my fashion choices. He would instead be wearing a black shirt underneath and he would not have it buttoned up. Please watch it. Be careful. We have moderators in the chat. Please watch for Wrestle Purists. He was just texting me a moment ago. I completely ignored him because I'm a professional. So I hope everyone is well. This is the Bert. It's Wednesday. You know what that means, right? Dynamite preview. A slightly different scenario today. Very different, I would actually go as far as say. AEW is in a scenario of which they have yet to encounter through 3 years of their existence, and they are reacting to it in, frankly, an intriguing, un-AEW fashion, which makes this exciting. Now, let me be very clear what I mean by un-AEW. It does not mean a negative, it does not mean a positive. It just means this is something they have not done before, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out tonight on TV. Let me make sure I know what I'm doing and that the stream isn't broke. There you go. Riley has cheered 100 bits. Tremendous. Riley has cheered 100 bits. We appreciate you, Riley. I was not laughing at you. I was laughing at someone else in the chat who's a piece of shit. And I hope everyone is well. So I want to approach this show slightly differently myself. Tonight, as we know, there is a Battle Royale to face Jon Moxley in the main event. Going to open with the Battle Royal and then close with the Moxley match. And I want to go through the possibilities for that. I think it's intriguing. Firstly, though, this is a good point. Congrats to young Bobby on the premiere of the world famous 31. Hearing a big demo. In all seriousness, have been blown away with the response to the 31. It should be crossing 400 views here shortly, which is hilarious considering that my kind of internal target was like 100, which I assume we'll quickly spiral towards here in the coming weeks and months. But we have got some plans for who's going to be on next. And, obviously, don't expect Tony Khan to be on, at least not for the first few seasons. But I think you can expect it to be fun. We have some ideas, and Bobby is just tremendous and did an incredible job. So if you like the 31, we appreciate you. If you've not seen it yet, you can find it on both Twitch and on YouTube. We did it on like an encore presentation on Twitch, which just pops me more than anything else. It doesn't really need to happen. It's kind of silly. It will hurt our statistics, but it's funny. So, yeah. If you haven't seen the 31, remedy that. I know a few of you rewatched it, which is hilarious. To have 60 live viewers on a video that's 6 minutes long and has no time other than the 5-minute countdown I added to really build viewership is hilarious to me. So we appreciate you guys. All right. I'm looking here in the chat. I will be answering questions, but as this is lots of Bobby heads here in the chat. Many Bobby heads. Okay. It's called the 31 is, well, Bobby's Twitter is really there. I mean, there's a more deeper meaning to it, but that's for Bobby to explain. But he's Twitter, born in 1931. I wanted to go through some of the potential candidates for tonight's Battle Royal and my favourites. And so that's where I'm going to start. There isn't much else to talk about, so we'll just kind of do this and talk pros, cons. You guys can name people. I'll try my best to see them, so on and so forth. I want to start with a tag team feud that has really been one of my favorite things in AEW in recent months. When you've heard me talk about it a lot, Team Taz, Keith, and Swerve. I think all four of these guys are really interesting candidates. Look at this, like these same joke grimaces. Filth. I think all four of these are interesting candidates to differing degrees for Jon Moxley tonight. Now, before I go any further, I want to make this clear. I am pretty locked in to the idea of Jon Moxley winning this match. I think you should be too. If you're not, that's fine. But considering that this is for a match against Tanahashi, that is probably going to be the match on Forbidden Door, almost certainly going to be the match, in fact, or at least one of the top two, I think you need Jon Moxley. This is the United Center. This is not the time for fun and games. You've been building Tanahashi and Moxley, or they have been building Tanahashi and Moxley anyway. It's a massive match you can do. I think we should all, honestly, regardless of what your preference is and who you like or dislike, I think if we're being objective here, Jon Moxley should probably be leaving tonight as the guy that's facing Tanahashi at Forbidden Door, or Tanahashi and Goto. You know, I think that really genuinely. I agree with this. The only guy who could possibly win other than Moxley is Danielson. As far as we know, he isn't cleared. I do think Eddie Kingston is an interesting name, but he's way too embroiled in this absolutely kind of tormenting feud with Jericho. I mean, he's losing his mind. So I think it would be the wrong time for that, as much as I love King. So I think you need Moxley as champ. I just do. I think that's where it has to be. So when I'm naming these guys, I'm not saying they'll beat Jon Moxley. I'm simply picking out options to face Jon Moxley. Let's quickly touch a couple of guys that I don't think are there. Just mentioned Danielson. Danielson and Moxley would be incredible TV. I don't know if I'd necessarily do it, but it would be really interesting. That'd be strong. I don't think Danielson's on the board, as was just referenced. So you have to, take him off. The other one that I don't think is going to be available, that might be, I'm not certain, is Andrade. If Andrade is available, he is one of the top candidates for this role, I think. I think he could be legitimately elevated by winning a Battle Royale and then losing to Moxley in a real match, a strong match, a lengthy match. I think Andrade is an interesting name. If he's around, I do not believe he is, but we shall find out here shortly. All right? Now, let's circle back to where I was starting, which was the tag team feud of Team Taz, Ricky, Hobbs versus Keith Lee and Swerve, who I believe are now officially known as Swerve in Our Glory. So, within this, I was convinced by our chat yesterday, shout out to whoever it was, who said that Powerhouse Hobbs, while everyone's on the Ricky Starks bandwagon, Powerhouse Hobbs makes a lot of sense. And I kind of talked myself into it, or they talked me into it anyway. Reason being, when you pair those two guys up, as great as Powerhouse Hobbs is, just by the nature of their personalities, Ricky takes center stage. That's who he is. That's who he's going to be. He is just incredibly charismatic, effortlessly so. And Hobbs is a big badass, but he's not as kind of outgoing on TV as Ricky is. Nothing wrong with that. It's fine. What that means is he needs the booking more than Ricky does in a lot of ways. Ricky will stay relevant and stay over just on personality. Hobbs, you need to actually reiterate to the audience that he's a player and he's a significant piece of this roster. For that reason, I have increasingly come to the conclusion that he is actually the most intriguing name on this potential kind of big board here. And there's a few factors for this. Firstly, a big man like him, he should be able to get some really cool eliminations. I'm talking about him flinging some big lads over the top. I think even if he doesn't win the match, he should clearly get some of those eliminations in this match if he's in it. So that's one thing. The big thing for me is when you're formatting this TV show, a Battle Royale at the top is bringing me the first 20 minutes of the show. And we're going to close this main event and we have this block in the middle. The real beauty of Hobbs is I think Moxley and Hobbs can be a 12-minute match and be better for it than it being longer. I think Hobbs could come out like a complete badass losing clean. The problem with Hobbs is, and honestly, you could argue it's a problem for all of these names, these four names. I do not really think the audience would buy that Hobbs could beat Moxley, which is not a catastrophe. It's not terrible, but when you're doing a TV product, it is slightly limiting because, you want to have great drama, and I think there's a chance people would just kind of conclude Moxley is winning it. So I think it's worth noting that as a potential flaw, but generally, this is where I would go. I really do like this option a lot. And I think Hobbs is a guy who, while he has been on TV as of late and relevant within the team with Ricky, I don't think has been really spotlighted as a singles in a while, honestly. Since he beat Dante in the qualifier, which I think was like 4 months ago. He's the one that stands out to me most personally. Okay. Now let's stay in that scene. Let's talk about Ricky Starks. Ricky Starks is equally compelling from this spot. Ricky would have a different type of match with Moxley. It's one that I would ideally have more, would ideally give more length than the Hobbs alternative. But Ricky is a guy who I think everyone wants to be up the card and everyone wants to be featured more in a kind of top guy role. Last week's Rampage suggests that they're going to be a team, which is fine. You can do both, not a big deal. I'm a big fan of the booking trope of the younger guy, and AEW has done this before and they're good at it. I'm a firm believer in the idea that the younger guy can gain a lot in defeat in kind of a way that you signal to the audience, you know, he's up next, basically. In a kind of unofficial, very loose way, you're telling the people, we know we're going to circle back to this. Now, I think the key would be, and someone said, I think it was Hester actually said it. Hester in the chat said about, you have to have the follow up, and that's absolutely true. But I will say, and Elliot just is ahead of me here on this point, I think he would be a more realistic victor of a match with Moxley than Powerhouse Hobbs, because I think he's more kind of in the television viewer's mind than Hobbs. The thing that would be really interesting, kind of a temperature check in terms of Ricky, would be how the audience reacts. I'm not saying they would cheer Ricky over Moxley. I absolutely do think, though, that there's a world in which the audience kind of rallies behind Ricky because they're excited by the idea of him being in that scene. I really do think that's feasible. So Ricky and Hobbs are my two favorite selections here. I prefer Hobbs because I think he needs it more, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I think it would do more for him. But both great options. Just quickly to answer this, Hester says, do you think Tony would be less inclined to push Cody guys? I don't. I actually think if he thinks highly of them, he'll be more inclined to push Cody guys, because he knows that they now have another option on the table, and that is going to be a thing. So I actually think kind of the opposite in a strange way. We have a new follower, M Dirty Dan. Pop. There's Brian Cage talk. Sorry to hear that. Okay. I want to go for a few more here. So let's just stay in that feud, to stick with that. The two babyface options are intriguing. Keith Lee is one that I must say I think is really exciting from a television perspective in terms of what kind of match you're giving the people on a whim. Keith Lee is not like a superstar name, but he gets superstar reactions. He has been protected totally in AEW. I think he got pinned in a tag match where they did like an interference or something. Him and Moxley definitely has like a marquee value to it. If you can throw that graphic up in segment 3, I think you can definitely convince people to stick around, because that feels like a big match, like a Clash of the Titans kind of deal. The issues with this, obviously, and I know people are going to put it in the chat, I get it that you don't want Keith to lose. My response to that, and listen, folks, maybe this is foolish of me, maybe I'm misreading the audience. I just don't buy that that's like a thing here, honestly. Keith Lee is a great attraction for your roster. He is also a guy who I'm pretty sure is in his late 30s, is established to the audience. The audience sees him as a big deal. I don't see any world in which Jon Moxley putting him out of a bully choke is going to kill Keith Lee's stature with the audience. I think it would help Keith Lee incredibly, obviously, to go out there and have a killer match in a main event spot with a true top guy in the promotion, and remind the folks of that's what people kind of associate with Keith Lee. to me, in a lot of ways, this is a really exciting one and as good as the other two because talk about temperature checks. This will tell you how over Keith Lee is. Keith Lee gets a mega reaction. There is a real chance he will get cheered in this match from Moxley because he's not the Moxley's kind of the status quo by comparison, which is hilarious as that sounds. I think Keith is a really fun one for TV purposes. It makes a lot of sense. This is great comment from Reese, and this is kind of my thoughts encapsulated much better than I could. Keith having a blowaway singles match and losing helps him way more than not being in that match at all. That's what I was trying to explain. I really think Keith has been used well, very well actually, and they've given a chance to find his feet. And I love the Swerve team, but this is a one-night chance to kind of like play around with what could be with him as a top single as a singles. If you wait forever, then and I'm not saying they're at like a emergency situation. They're not at all. I'm just saying is, it's a fun opportunity to play around with that, and then you can immediately go back to him and Swerve as a babyface tag team. So there you go. A lot of their top guys have taken falls recently. There aren't that many there aren't that many need actually protected like that at this stage. I agree totally. I also agree with this. Some people need to lose in this battle royal for it to seem like it's worth a shot at the world title. It needs to be star-studded. I think they've used that term, but we know that promoters, license and stuff. Hopefully, it really is stacked and it feels special. Not there on the same level, but if Samoa Joe can lose to Adam Cole, then Keith Lee can lose to Mox. Fair. Let's just make sure that Bobby Fish doesn't run in. I think Keith won't lose a lot because from losing, all he needs to do is drop down, leapfrog, and he's back to where he was. There you go. It'd be really interesting. Really exciting to see that match too. It would have an appeal that honestly the other two matches I talked about, as much as I like them. Hang on a second. Well, now I'm confused. Our pal Monty here has texted me from Wrestle Purists. And it's from the control center. It says, who will win the Battle Royal and face Jon Moxley for the AEW Interim World Championship? Is tonight for the belt? Isn't tonight for a shot at the belt? Someone help. I don't know. Any thoughts about Kingston winning the Battle Royal? I was going to circle to this later, but I'll answer it now because you asked. I think it could be really compelling from a live perspective. Because, Eddie Kingston is a star and him and Jon Moxley have history and it could be a really great moment. But I will say that I don't think it's the time, honestly. That's just me. I think Kingston's way too wrapped up in the Jericho stuff. I actually don't think he should be in the match. To me, that dude, the way they're presenting him is that he's like losing it. I don't think he should be in it. So that's just me. It says, the exact quote is, it's graphic from the control center. It says, who will win the Battle Royal and face Jon Moxley for the AEW Interim World Championship? I don't know. Strange. It's bizarre. Who's your final four to make it feel meaningful? So apparently it's on the control center program. I actually, to be honest with you, man, I've kind of talking it through, really got myself into this Keith Lee idea. So I would go with Keith and Starks as the last two. I would have Darby in the last four. And I would probably have someone that's kind of a veteran, like a Christian Cage, for example. A Christian Cage. Just to someone, a glue guy, No, there's a four. I know it's not like crazy stat, but I think they're all, to me, are like fringe top guys. So I know that helps. Okay. This circle about while everyone figures out what the hell they're tweeting about. I don't know. Okay. I'm going to go back to my notes here. So we talked about Keith, we talked about Ricky, we talked about Hobbs. Let's talk about Swerve, who has got over so huge in the Holbert family that he has convinced us we're going to a Progress show, which is a rib, but I'll get into that when it happens. Swerve, I think, is clearly the fourth of these options, which speaks to how exciting the other three are. but he is intriguing. Many of the same factors are at play with him in the sense that I don't think he's got nearly the same degree of reaction that Keith Lee has, which there's no shame in. That's just is what it is. So it would be a real chance to kind of elevate him and get again one of those really valuable reads on the audience where I think Swerve, I think, will be less likely to get like a huge reaction than Moxley in this position. But I do think his performances as of late are very much worthy this spot. I think he's been spectacular as of late. Honestly, since him and Keith started rolling as a team, he's one of the more exciting guys to watch in the whole promotion. I agree with this. This is old school pro wrestling that works a treat. The Who's House deal genuinely works in every building they go to. And I'll say this much. In terms of the straight up match itself, him and Mox is the one that maybe excites me most bell to bell. Now, again, I say that saying fully aware that I did just say, and I stick by it, I think he's fourth out of these four candidates for me, booking wise. But as a match, it's very intriguing. I will say, though, I think Swerve's got more time on his side. I think he's been pinned not too much, but enough that honestly I'd be kind of slightly hesitant. I think Keith's the better choice. So, there's those four guys. I want to talk about someone just got brought up in the chat who has been out recently that I think's watching the control center, they have it correct. The graphic on Twitter is just poorly worded. Good Lord, man. Tough. Someone just brought him up. Where was the Orange Cassidy? Here we go. Is Orange ready? Orange Cassidy is a major dark horse in this Battle Royal. I believe he is cleared. It is hard to say. He's on the Universal Studios graphic. But that doesn't really mean anything because he is going to be there regardless because he'll just like be at ringside and stuff and take photos of people. So it's whatever. If it is him and he's cleared, I think here's the reason I think it's a feasible possibility. Lest we forget, 7 months ago when Mox had to take himself out of the game, and thank goodness he did, and we're so happy to have him back in the industry. But him and Orange was the match that was booked for the semi-final. Remember that? It was the world title tournament. Orange Cassidy, Jon Moxley was the semi-final, set and ready to go. They had interactions in the ladder match prior to that, the casino one with Hangman in it. And it was really a big topic at the time, how fun that match was going to be. Especially because Mox was, especially violent and aggressive in that last stretch in that tournament. I remember him wrestling 10 and just massacring the poor man. And that was a match that we didn't get because much more important things came into play. And that is what it is. But I absolutely think Tony Khan remembers that. So do not be surprised if they circle back to that matchup, which is one that intrigues me and I'm sure intrigues a lot of their audience. And I do think from a TV perspective, it would be exciting purely because Orange has not been in the ring. So there you go. Now, I will say, and this part is kind of maybe divisive, I think the only problem with this is that excitement that he hasn't been around is equal parts slightly outdone by the fact that I think people would struggle to believe that the title match is Tanahashi versus Orange Cassidy, which is not a big deal, but it is a thing. But it still feels very possible, I think. How many people do you reckon are in this battle royal? 15, 20, 30? I would say 15, 20 is where the kind of range I'm thinking. But that's purely guesswork, bro. I don't know. But it'll be interesting. You'll get a debut in the Battle Royal. I don't think the roster needs any, but with all the injuries, I could see Tony being tempted. You could beat a debut against Mox. It'll be interesting. I think you're going to get a kind of move made here shortly, in the sense that, in the sense of what you're talking about with the injuries, he gets tempted. I don't think that will be present in the Battle Royal. I think the Battle Royal is going to have enough kind of, shuffling and, kind of political maneuvering, not by the wrestlers, but just in a booking way, trying to protect all these different guys. I think they'll leave the signings out of it. Now, you may get some random guest spots. It wouldn't surprise me if you got some kind of Johnny Elite-esque figures. But in terms of big time all elite graphic signings, I don't think you'll get those, no, because this is going to be, as Pal says here, this is going to just be, I think they're going to start the show with like everyone in the ring. I'm kind of that's what they're going to do here. So it'll be interesting. All right. Again, just to be clear here, because I think this is, I've changed my mind so many times. Talking it through, I think Keith Lee is the most exciting option. I'm going to give a few more. Miro is an interesting candidate. It's not one I really like, to be totally honest with you, because Miro just came back, and my concern with Miro is he lost the TNT title, he lost to Bryan Danielson. I want to give him a program win before he really, enters this kind of scenario where he's losing a big match. With that being said, I've always worth bringing him up because he's a top heel. And, I think him and Moxley is obviously a big match. And in fact, the world title thing is even in play with them too because Miro took his place, so on and so forth. I think he's a worthwhile name to consider, even though I think it would be a mistake because Moxley's winning. Now, if you're not tied to Moxley winning, then I think it would be a hell of a spot for Miro. And let's be clear, him and Tanahashi would be tremendous. Could you imagine the selling in that match? I'd love to see it. I just think Moxley's leaving tonight the winner. So for that reason, I'm not a big fan of Miro as a choice. But I've always worth mentioning because he did just come back. He's one of their top heels. If you want a clear baby heel spot and a match that has some kind of stature to it and a marquee element to it, I think this fits the bill. So I've always worth bringing up. Could you see Mox winning the title and then there being a program between him and Hangman after that? Part of me wants to see Punk Hanger 2 for the title unification. I could see it. I don't necessarily know if that's what they're going to do. I'm really intrigued, though, to your question, because I think this is an interesting talking point. And we'll get into it with Hangman and what he's doing tonight. I'm intrigued what their intention is next for Hangman, because it does need to be some really considered, thoughtful character development. My guess is that Moxley, and this has been my kind of reading it, and I could be totally wrong, I think Moxley and Punk was penciled in for All Out, and I think their hope is it will still be the match at All Out just for 2 belts. That's my guess. I think Moxley's title reign will be more the kind of B programs that a Punk would have had rather than saying at the magnitude of Hangman. The question then becomes, what does Hangman do? Which we'll get into here shortly when we talk about the Finley match, which I promise I have not forgotten about. There is no Bert line news today. Bob has got to hit the big time. He was doing his meeting with executives last night, so tweet him if you want to know his prediction. Okay. I have a couple other names here. Someone in the chat mentioned a few, so I'm going to get to these first. Malachi Black, Brody King, Buddy Matthews, House of Black, all those guys, I'm going to just group them together. I don't think this makes sense for them. I am a big proponent of pulling off the Band-Aid and having some guys lose big matches and elevating them in defeat. I think at this point you've been patient enough with House of Black. This is not the spot for them. Now, with all just clarity here, let's be completely transparent. If any 3 of those guys wins the Battle Royal, I'm fired up to see him wrestle Jon Moxley. As a fan, any of those matches is fun to me. But if I'm trying to be objective and kind of, clinical about this, if I'm being objective about this, analytical about it, I don't think this is the time for the House of Black. I think it's pretty clear that instead you've been patient enough. If you want to do them in the title program, let's do that when it means something. Let's not do it on a one-off. That's just my personal read on House of Black. They are worth bringing up. And if you want to pop a number, I would like to believe that throwing up a Malachi Black, Jon Moxley graphic would do that. But I just don't think I don't think it's the time. I don't think this is the way you do that. So House of Black for me, I'm putting in that Miro category. I'd actually have them as worse options than him, but I think it's worth bringing up. I also saw Darby. Darby was on my list. Darby is a really intriguing one because it appears that they are kind of unofficially doing a losing streak of sorts with him. They have not really alluded to it on TV, but him losing to O'Reilly felt to me like they've got something in mind here from a character development point of view, which is interesting and probably overdue. With booking tonight, you could actually continue that by having him lose to Moxley while kind of rejuvenating him in terms of presentation by having him win the Battle Royal. So, Darby, I think, is an intriguing one. I think it's better than the last two names we talked about. I don't know if it's quite as interesting to me as Orange, purely because Darby and Mox had their title match 2 years ago now, right? A long time ago. So I always want to bring up Darby because you can do the losing streak thing while kind of showing him some love. So, I think he's an interesting name. Just to circle back to this, Eddie Kingston. I know there's a lot of people want Eddie to win this. I just don't think it makes sense. The Jericho stuff, the way it's been presented, I think Eddie needs to be focused on that. I wouldn't even have him in the Battle Royale. Honestly, I think Eddie is framing it himself like Jericho's drove him nuts. So, to me, keep Eddie focused. Moxley's different. Moxley's just helping his pal out. He's awful hard to love and loves a fight. So, I think it's different, but that's just me. So, we have Darby on the board. I think Darby's a more feasible option than Miro and Malachi, less so than Orange Cassidy, quite frankly. Let me add him here to my little list of names. This is going to be hilarious when you know for a fact the winner won't be any of these, right? That's the way this business works. All right. Kyle O'Reilly. I saw many people in the chat naming him. He's on my list here. O'Reilly is a really interesting blend of the factors we've been talking about. So, what do you have going for O'Reilly? Well, firstly, the match itself would be awesome. And it would not need 20 minutes to be awesome. It would be like physical, and Moxley could get into his kind of grappling bag, which I know he loves doing that shit. And like Kyle was the guy to do it with, and they could trade strikes and have a really cool match. Like a juiced up version of what he did with Joe, which didn't need a lot of time either. So, that part, honestly, of all these names, in terms of pure wrestling, that may be the most compelling option of all of them. In addition to that, he doesn't feel cold at all. He beat Darby at the pay-per-view, and more than that, he's been wrestling with such a degree of consistency. He feels like he's kind of heating up. He feels in rhythm in a way that honestly very few guys in AEW do, where it feels like I've seen him wrestle, because I have, honestly, for the last 3-4 weeks straight, I've seen him wrestle. And that may not be relevant to all of you, but I think it's cool. I think it has a certain presence in the TV viewer's mind of, if you watch Dynamite for the last month, you know that O'Reilly's for real. Now, granted, Joe beat him. Samoa Joe. No, I don't think there's anything kind of negative there from a booking perspective. Again, he beat Darby. So I think he's a really intriguing possibility. The issue is, for everything I just said, does he have the stature to truly convince people that he's going to win this match? I don't think so, and that's why he falls short in comparison to a Keith Lee, for example, who I think could convince me in the middle of the match. But Kyle is one of the better heel options, I think, more so than Miro and Malachi, because I'm much more confident beating him. I think Kyle makes a lot of sense. Okay. Kyle O'Reilly is on the board. Let me look here at my list. There's a bunch of names here, guys. Really is. I see a lot of Takeshita talk in the chat. Let's talk about Takeshita. He may be the most sincere, authentic version of a true elevation in terms of picking a guy and saying, Mox, let's bring this guy up a tier or two with this match. My concern with Takeshita is, I wonder if, while he is clearly ready from a talent perspective, I just don't know if you've got him to the point with the TV viewer where this fully makes sense. Now, hold on. I know he had the bang with Hangman. I get it totally. Him being without a win on TV makes it slightly difficult for me. I have to be totally honest. And if we were 6 months, or not even that, if we were 3 months into this run and he just had a couple wins along the way, I'd be a lot more in on throwing him up to the top of the board. I don't know. I don't know if this is the spot to do it. I think maybe just a little too soon in terms of booking, but in terms of the match, it would be tremendous, and he's clearly skilled enough and talented enough, and honestly, he's getting over quickly enough to be in this spot. But I don't think so. I don't think this is the time for Takeshita, but that's just me. Most of the names I'm seeing in the chat, I have on my list in front of me here. Let's go to another one. I've seen him brought up a few times, somewhat reluctantly so in some cases. Sammy Guevara. Now, this one is a lot because this is clearly the best option if you want to keep Jon Moxley babyface. Firmly babyface, that is. He will get, obviously, he would get booed as he always does as of late. I just don't think he has much juice. Sammy is an interesting case study in like heat and what that means because I kind of think a lot of they've turned him heel and he's leaning in and all that stuff. To me, is not doing much good for him at all. Just to be totally honest, I think he feels like he's fallen down the card quite dramatically, which is, it happens. Guys go up and down. I just don't think he's like this red hot heel that people want him to be. That's just me. Now, whatever. Look, this is fair. I just don't. That's not my read of Sammy right now. If you'd asked me 6 months ago, I'd probably agree with you. He was really over. I don't see him that way right now. Maybe I'm wrong. Do I think it would be a crazy choice? No, not really. I think the match should be good. I don't think it would be particularly exciting, personally. Maybe that's subjective, but I don't know. I don't know where you guys in the chat are at. I don't think he feels particularly important right now, and that's not all on him by any means. Like that's just the way stuff's kind of shuffled. The TNT thing is kind of, the TNT thing hurt him in that he kind of became like the face of bad booking, which isn't on him at all. And obviously there's other stuff that I don't even like. I don't give a fuck about that stuff. I just think a lot of the heat is like not. I don't want to do the good heat, bad heat discussion, but I don't personally think a lot of the audience is booing him in like a top guy heel way at all. I think he's just getting booed, which, maybe I'm wrong on that front. I don't think it's particularly compelling personally, but that's just me. Okay. Sammy Guevara, nonetheless, he's worth bringing up. I don't think it'd be a crazy choice. The match would be cool. You get what you get. All right. Up next, let's look in the direction. We've already talked about Eddie Kingston. Let's look in the direction of perhaps the favorite, in my view, Chris Jericho. Jericho is the one that clearly would continue the feud that is currently underway with the Jericho Appreciation Society and all that good stuff. And the only other guy in the Jericho Appreciation Society that could be in this spot wrestled Moxley last week. So if you're going to do something with Jericho Appreciation Society, it's going to be Jericho himself. I'm not convinced, to be totally honest, that he's going to be in this match because Jericho is, has Jericho tweeted about it? In which case, yes, he has won it. This seems like a big scoop. Jericho, I think, is the favorite to win this, honestly. I didn't know he tweeted that. If so, then take it to the bank. But no, in all seriousness, Jericho and Moxley is a really nice kind of sweet spot where it's a big match, but it's not one you're saving for down the line because you've done it before. You never run it back, so it's like vaguely fresh. If you do some shenanigans with 2.0 and Hager and co., you may be able to get people to bite on a bunch of false finishes about him winning, which is very strong. You can do another Eddie Kingston run-in where he stumbles a little bit, which is awesome. I think it's a really... While it isn't one that, I'll be totally honest with you guys. I think Jericho's been great. As of late, I'm not, desperate to see this match. But from a television perspective, this is in some ways one of the smarter calls. In a lot of ways, it's kind of perfect. I just think it'd be a nice place to elevate someone, which is clearly where I'm leaning. The other thing with Jericho is he isn't, outrageous as an opponent for Tanahashi. At all. Tanahashi had one of Jericho's best matches of the last 10 years. And, he's a big enough star that, you could talk yourself into Tanahashi versus Jericho being the match. So, in that way, he really makes a lot of sense. To be clear, I would be very hesitant to do Jericho Tanahashi again. I think, end it on that triumph they had at Tokyo. That was quite the feat they had there. So I wouldn't try and run it back, but it would be feasible, and I think Jericho makes an awful lot of sense. I would personally question if he gains as much from it as some of the other guys we talked about. I'm not sure, but it may be what's best for the TV show. So in that regard, I don't really have an issue if that's where they go. Frank _1E has subscribed with Prime. Thanks, pal. Appreciate that very much. Jericho is absolutely one of the best options, and I think he's almost objectively the most likely option. Let's talk about Pac. Reese just brought up. Pac is a really fun one because him and Moxley's a big time match. I think that happened early in AEW. I forget. I think it was a TV match they did early when they kind of they did like Mox and Pac versus Hangman and Kenny or something like that. I forget. Pac is an interesting one because he's a guy who you absolutely can have lose to Jon Moxley, but he's like protected enough that he's definitely credible. He's like a really weird. He's honestly one of the strangest members of the roster in that he's a full-time member, but because of the circumstances, he feels like he's on the outside looking in a bunch, which gives him a kind of aura that makes it feel special when you get him in a big-time singles match like this would be. Him and Moxley's a big match. It would obviously be a great match. The audience loves Pac and would convince themselves, that he's got a shot, which is what you want. I don't know if the TV viewer would necessarily buy him, but I think he's kind of awesome enough, if that makes any sense, to overcome that. So I think Pac's a really feasible one. I just I don't know. I don't know if to me, he's kind of a middle ground between Jericho and those other guys, where it's like he doesn't need it as much as the first guys we talked about, but in the same way, he's not quite as marquee as like Jericho is. So there you go. Just to circle back, because this is a good question, but I answered earlier about House of Black. I don't think it's the time for them. It's a good question. If it was them, I would pop because it would be awesome. Those matches would be great. All three of those matches would be great. But I just don't think it's the time. I think you've been patient enough. Stay patient with House of Black. Hester has subscribed with Prime. Thanks, pal. We appreciate it very much. He also says, the more you've talked, the more I'm convinced Jericho's the right option. I don't disagree. I still love that Keith Lee one, but Jericho makes an awful lot of sense. He really does. All right, let's go for a last couple here. I want to talk about Christian Cage as a sort of lesser version of what Jericho gives you. Many of you will know I am big into this idea, and I've pitched it many times for the last 5 months now. God, maybe 6. I'm big into the idea of Christian seeking his own title win, and that only kind of accelerating his frustrations with trying to live vicariously through Jungle Boy and his dinosaur friend. So that is something that I think you could certainly do here. There is an inside story of his thing with Jungle Boy starting in a Battle Royale, which is kind of fun. Him redeeming himself in that regard, doing a promo with Jungle Boy and saying, I'm going to go to Forbidden Door and get the big belt, and then, we're going to have all the belts and all that stuff, and fouling in that regard, I think would be a nice element to his eventual turn on Jungle Boy, assuming that Adam Edgelord isn't coming in to be his partner. So Christian is a fun one. It's definitely one more for my personal preference because I would like to see him wrestle Moxley. My honest read on it is they're going to have a more extended feud at some point because I know those guys are pretty close. So I thought I would reference him simply because Christian is a big name, and he's got a certain level of standing with the wider wrestling audience. I think the match would be great. So Christian, I thought I'd add to the board. Samoa Joe is not on the board because while it would be a pop, I do not think that Joe, a hype train has started. WrestleMania has subscribed for 1 month for tier 1. Thanks, pal. We appreciate it. A hype train has started, folks. And all that means, but it started. Right, this is it, man. The roster's crazy. This is why I love doing this, though. It's fun. As nerdy as this show's been, this is fun. For me, I hope it's fun for you. Joe, I think, is going to be out for the next little stretch here. He's, I think he's got the gimmick. What's the film he's doing? The TV show he's doing? I think that's why they wrote him off for a little bit. I think you'd expect to see Joe back in motion, ready to go for the build to the Ring of Honor show. Is the Battle Royale really going to go really long? Is the Battle Royale going to go really long? Sorry, I read that poorly. Is the Battle Royale going to go really long? What else is on this show? The only thing announced is Hangman and Finlay, so it could go long, especially if it's star-studded. He could definitely get real, antsy about beating guys, having guys just thrown over. It could go 30, 40 minutes long, which I think would be a major mistake. Yeah. I'm looking here. What we got here? Melissa, JJ, both cheering 100 bits. There is Grinny is running wild here. I see this. I see that level 1 is complete. Thanks, Fowles. Thanks very much. That rules. Joe Tanahashi, pop. Twisted Metal. There you go. Congratulations. Yeah, Wardlow, I don't think can be in this. I think you got to do something else with Wardlow. You got to figure out something for him. You don't want him to just kind of float around. Right, the last name I have on my board here is MJF. I think this would be dumb. I think it would be rushed. I think it would probably be illogical. Not probably, I think it would be illogical. But I wanted to mention him because I know he's on the tip of everyone's tongue at the minute, which credit to him for that. I just don't think this is the place for MJF. I think if you're going to do this work shoot business and you're going to have him taken out of ads and take off his site and this, that, and the next thing, and you need to at least get through 1 week of him not being on the show. Now, I think you should do a deal where he actually is off for a few weeks and then he starts doing kind of stunts and he's showing up in plays. Now, I'm a firm kind of believer in you have to be very careful of who you're working here. However, I am intrigued, legitimately, by having MJF on camera in the crowd when you take a wide shot and you pan, but not doing the wrestling thing of holding on and be like, oh my God, MJF's here. No, just move past. Don't even reference him. And let social media do social media and pick stuff up like they do because everyone's so inside now. And let people kind of see as much as they want to see of it. I think if he's just on the TV show in the next month as a regular character, I think it's dumb. He has to be an outsider. That's the whole point. He's been suspended, basically. And it's got so heavy they won't even talk about it. Now, I say all this to say, I ain't got a clue how much of this, even at this point, is planned. I think a lot of this could be operating on the fly, which is very scary. Big Pillman vibes for the latest Sean Rossat report on it, which was very intriguing. So I don't really know with the MJF thing, but if you're going to do it right. He shouldn't be on TV this week. That's my personal read on it. More bits from Melissa, JJ, Frank. My God. Look at us. Look at us with these bits. I still don't know what that means. Phoenix and Penta are interesting. Very interesting. I was thinking this through, and I eventually left them off the list. If it's going to be one of those two, I would certainly lean more towards Ray Phoenix. I just ultimately concluded that if you're going to do Death Triangle, Pac's the guy to go with. Now, granted, that leaves out the possibility that, the very real possibility that Pac is not around, which is fine. But Phoenix is an exciting one. I'm not really into Penta for this role. That's just me. I think him and Mox would be cool. Bits equals money. Well, in that case, special thank you. I always forget which one's which. Bits are the things you cheer, right? Good stuff. Penta versus Mox would be cool. I don't know. It's not really the spot for him. It feels like it would be a bit of a reach to me. Phoenix is different in that even though he's not as overtly kind of popular as Penta, because Penta has all the taunt and the incredible visual. His work is so revered by the fan base. I think you can do it, but I personally wouldn't. So just to put a bow on that to answer this, because it's a good question. I answered it very long ago, so I understand not everyone was here. I think if he's around, Andrade should be one of the top candidates. I don't know if he's going to be back yet. if he is, yes, he should be one of the top 3 or 4 guys you think about for sure. It's not just you. Penta's taunt is absurd. It's one of the most ridiculous things ever. It's not just you. It's a matter of whether you find it endearing or embarrassing. It's your call. Yes, we appreciate you guys on this bits business and hype trains and that stuff. It's blown us all away that the quick support on Twitch and how quickly you guys just followed us there. Tremendous. It's becoming very clear this is hard for them to go wrong. Anyone but Jake Hager, and it should be good times. Yeah, absolutely. Genuinely, Hager is the only one that seems like not impossible. That would be like an active mistake. Like I was kind of down on Sammy Guevara earlier, but I genuinely think it would be fine. It's not the most exciting thing to me, but All right, just to put a bow on that. My favorite option is Keith Lee. Jericho is probably the most kind of I'm kind of struggling with this because I do think Keith Lee makes a lot of sense in a lot of exciting ways that Jericho doesn't. But I think Jericho is probably the best choice. I think Jericho is definitely the favorite. But I stick with those guys, man. I was say again, Keith, Hobbs, Starks, and Swerve are all intriguing. I think Orange is a dark horse. O'Reilly is too. I just named about 8 people. That's my short list for the gig. So there you go. Let's talk about Hangman and David Finlay Jr. Which, with that in mind, Chops asks, does Hangman challenge Okada after his win tonight? What's the story coming out of this match? Well, I think it goes without saying that clearly you need a promo of some sort tonight, right? I think, whether he's calling out Okada or he's doing something else or he's saying something about the Elite or whatever it is, you need some form of promo tonight. Probably post match promo with Shivani or whatever it may be. I think the big thing here is what Ibby brings up, which is what kind of attitude we get, what kind of presentation we get. Do we get a particularly vicious Hangman after he didn't pull the trigger at the pay-per-view? Or, on the contrary, is he kind of content with his choice and he's confident he's going to quickly remedy this thing by winning, for example, the IWGP title? I don't know. The Dave's reporting of the Okada thing was like weird enough that I don't really know if it's happening or not. So, bravo. Him and Okada makes a lot of sense for Forbidden Door. It makes sense for Hangman, but you really have to be prepared for what you're going to do next. Like, I'm not very good at trying to figure out the kind of in-depth character elements in wrestling. That's not saying I'm effective at. So a lot of you have a better read on Hangman's character than I do. But I think we can all agree that you definitely need to have a plan. If he's going to lose that title match too, you need to ready whatever the next direction is. And however you're going to kind of rebuild him. I think we all agree we want Hangman to be like the ace of the promotion long term. So whatever your detour here is, it needs to be focused and it needs to be in line with who Hangman's audience perceives him to be. So I don't know what that is necessarily. That's not a strong suit of mine. Obviously there'd have to be some sort of reaction to losing 2 big title matches, right? But what that is and how you do it, I genuinely don't know. But that's the only thing that would make me hesitant with Okada is you're really going strong in one direction of him losing 2 big matches. And I don't know. It'd be slightly brave, I think. I think we might see Jay and Juice after the match, and we get a tag of Finlay and Hangman against Jay and Juice to build a Jay White Hangman match with Bindor. Would that be for the belt or not? Is the thing that intrigues me. I think that's possible too. For the belt or not, to be clear. Hope they have everything planned out for what's next after Forbidden Door. The next thing should be, in my opinion, Malachi trying to fully corrupt him. See, now there you go. This is what I mean by that's not a strong suit of mine. That's immediately a better idea than anything I had for Malachi. That's for a Hangman. That's perfect. That's exactly the kind of character that Malachi would latch onto. And it would also, it would immediately explore the kind of finish of the last pay-per-view, which was making the right choice rather than the smart choice, if that makes sense. And Malachi could, with these spooky promos, could certainly explore that and have fun with that. So that's strong. Yeah, you can do a lot of different stuff with it. I think you'll probably get him calling out Okada if I was to like really guess, but um, it's difficult to say. I don't know. Who are Hangman's partners when he and House Supply have a bang on? I mean, ideally it would be Silver and Reynolds, right? But that seems like that's a thing of the past. So I don't know. His last partners were Jurassic Express. Um, as for tonight's match itself, it's not very exciting. David Finlay is solid, like absolutely solid and good pro, but he's not like he don't exactly jump off the page. I'm not sure many people saw the graphic and was like, oh my god, spreadsheets, But he's good. He's a good wrestler, so I think it'll be good. I mean, he's the one thing I will say is stylistically. I mean, Hangman's going to just whack him really hard, so I think he'll probably match him in physicality if nothing else, and they'll have a kind of bruising 10-minute television match. So I think it'll be good. It's not the most you know um, spectacular matchup, but for a little teaser of what's ahead, I think it's cool. So there you go. If we get Okada Hangman, I'll buy Forbidden Door 2 times over. My dream match. My God. Well, don't do that. You only have to get it once. I mean, it's great. It's great, but just unless you want to watch it on 2 screens, in which case, fair. I wonder if they do 2 feeds, and one you can buy Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton, and the other you get JR getting mad at all the matches. um, yeah, I'm just playing. That match is awesome. And they're both so like versatile stylistically. Yeah, it'll be interesting. This is going to be my last talking point because I went so long on that nerdy shit that I just killed all our time. He'll be asked, "What do you see for the women tonight?" Which is a great question. So last week, obviously, we did that kind of weird like stop off tag where it was a rematch from Rampage, and we had Ruby winning, which was a puzzling choice, I must say. And then Britt took the fall, and then afterwards they got their heat back. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they announced today Jamie versus either Tony again or Ruby again. Ruby, she wrestled in September, but that feels on the board. Same with Jamie in a singles versus either of those two. I'm getting slightly. I would be getting slightly gun shy with Jamie in singles because if she's not winning, I'm kind of a little bit concerned about that element of it. I must say. The other options, something with Athena. I think it's very likely, very possible, I should say, not likely. It's very possible that they announce Athena and Red Velvet because that's logical. The only reason they wouldn't is because they want to space out the two, um, the kind of pursuit of the Jade match, which makes sense. Other than that, I'm trying to think. I mean, Rosa's obviously needs a new program, so maybe you pick whoever's wrestling Rosa next and give them a win. I don't know if Rosa's going to be around. So I know she wasn't well last week, so hopefully she's good. If she is, you need to give her something to do. Goes without saying. But yeah, I mean, there's some kind of just guesses. I wouldn't be surprised either, honestly, if Serena Deeb just gets a win on TV because she lost the pay per view. Because look, their program was where it was. Like the build was it was rough at times, to be totally frank. But Serena and Thunder Rosa killed it, and I absolutely think they can main event a Dynamite together in a rematch, especially with a stipulation of some kind. Like I think they can definitely do that. So in that case, you could equally do Serena Deeb in a win over, someone you can have a real match with. Maybe like her and Yuka or something cool like that. Fuck, her and Riho would be great. So there's some different things you can do. I actually think it would be cool, and Reese has said it already, so I'll throw his gimmick on the screen here. I think it would be cool in fear of going over kind of stuff that people get real mad talking about. Like I think it'd be pretty cool if they did 2 women's matches tonight because there's going to be a battle royal, but you know, I know it's very very controversial topic, but I think it'd be pretty cool. Personally, I think you could definitely do. If you what was the ones he said? Athena and Red, Hater versus Tony. Like if you switched one of those because you didn't want to burn both with the Serena match I just mentioned, I think that'd be fine. I think the show would be okay. Okay, has the 6th woman been booked? Anna or Chris could. There you go. You could do the 6th woman. You could do Anna or Chris. There you go. Andrew's right. They're building to. Oh, sorry. Are they building to an ODQ match between Ruby and Britt? They could be. I'd rather they just not wrestle again, to be honest. But yeah, maybe. All right, we're at an hour. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. I really enjoyed getting a chance to be aggressively nerdy here and kind of just list off names. And um, I look, I think everyone knows how much I'm a fan of CM Punk. I'm gutted that he's not going to be around for this next couple months. But I will say, wrestling and the challenge of reacting to these moments is one of the things that makes wrestling so kind of it's always alive. Wrestling, you know, there's no off season, as every WWE video game used to stress to us. And I think it's interesting seeing how different promotions react to these things. So I hope we had fun with this. I hope you did. I know I did. Go watch the 31 with Robert O'Neill. I will see you tomorrow at this same time on this same platform for the review of the show we just talked about for an hour. In the meantime, enjoy this outro, folks. All how.